What happens when the man running America's most powerful law enforcement agency is caught using taxpayer jets to rub shoulders with celebrities, while decorated FBI agents lose their jobs for doing the right thing? That's the uncomfortable question Senator Peter Welch forced onto the table when he confronted Director Kash Patel. And the way Patel answered, or tried not to answer, reveals a much bigger story about trust, double standards, and whether those in power think they're playing by different rules than the rest of us. From the very start of their exchange, Welch set a tone that most politicians in Washington rarely take.
All of us believe, and that is that the political violence that is so afflicting our country, it doesn't matter whether it's from the right or the left. I mean, all of us have an obligation to fiercely advocate for our point of view. All of us have an obligation to respect people with whom we disagree. The folks we disagree with are our opponents, but they're not our enemies. And I hope all of us keep that in mind and do the best we can to set that example. I want to congratulate the FBI. I want to congratulate the Utah state and local law enforcement for the very good work that it did in apprehending the violent assailant of Charlie Kirk, and that is a terrible, terrible tragedy. Director Patel, at one point you made an announcement that the suspect was in custody. We got our man. It turned out that was not true. In fact, I think that was about 27 hours before the person now in custody was apprehended. Why did you make that statement?
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate you letting me address this. What the FBI does is not just locate and find suspects, but we also participate in eliminating subjects. And what we had at the time was a subject in custody in relation to this investigation. So in my commitment to work with the public to help identify subjects and suspects, I put that information out. And then when we interviewed him, I put out the results of that. And could I have been more careful in my verbiage and included an A subject instead of subject? Sure, in the heat of the moment, but I was doing the best I could.
In all candor, I don't quite get that, because if we have our man, that would suggest to the public that everybody can rest and relax and not then continue to provide information to local law enforcement and to you. Well, so that was a mistake.
I don't see it as a mistake. I see it as something working with the public to identify that there was a subject
so if
in
you
custody.
If you put out a statement that says we've got our man, and in fact it turns out that you didn't have your man, that's not a mistake?
But that's not what I said.
Well, I'll go on. That's my understanding. A second thing that is really important in the FBI, but it's important in every agency, is that the folks who are doing good work get supported for the work they're doing. And a number of highly successful FBI agents have been let go. And I want to just ask you a little bit about that. You know who Brian Driscoll is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And my understanding is he served at the FBI for over 18 years. You agree?
I believe that's accurate.
Special agent in charge of the Newark office. He was commander of the FBI's hostage rescue team. That's a very prestigious and responsible position, correct?
It is.
Section chief of the Critical Incident Response Group's tactical section. You've got to be pretty good to get that high responsibility. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
He oversaw 55 SWAT teams, and they're like the elite of the elite, right? They go in to the dangerous situations, right? He got a Medal of Valor for his participation in a raid on ISIS terrorist Abu Sayyaf, who had kidnapped American citizens Kyla Mueller, right? Mueller? Is that right?
I know.
You're in agreement, right?
I know Kayla Mueller's family, yes. I know this situation.
Okay, and he got Kurt Meyer, somebody who had barricaded himself in a bar after he killed 4 people and wounded 2. And Driscoll was part of the team that went in there and took that guy out, right?
I don't have all the details, but I'll take your word for it, Senator.
And he got into trouble when Emil Bove demanded a list of FBI agents who investigated January 6th and was apprehensive that what did happen ultimately would happen, and that is those folks would get fired. I mean, do you agree with me that a boss who stands up for his subordinates when they did the job that was asked of them is a stand-up person and somebody to be admired?
Generally speaking, yes, sir.
Pardon me?
Generally speaking, yes, sir.
But Driscoll got fired, right?
Again, that matter is under litigation, and the matter you referenced occurred before I was
Okay, but
director.
let's just keep it really narrow here. He's fired, right?
Yes, he was terminated.
And he has to be, there's somebody communicates to him that he's terminated, correct?
That's my job.
That's your job. So you communicated to him that he was fired.
I did.
So, you know, I have a hard time with this because that record suggests to me that this person is like worthy of consideration for the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and he got fired.
But there's also a record of other information that was available, and now that this matter is pending litigation, we will get that out in due course. But as
Okay,
you
so
can
this
agree.
so-called, so you've got, quote, other information that you see as a valid basis to fire somebody who, from what I can tell, had an absolutely outstanding record and who crossed the threshold of getting in trouble because he was standing up for agents serving under him who did work that was assigned to them that happened to be related to the January 6th uprising.
Again, you're correlating based on your information the reasons for his termination, and I'm telling
No,
you.
that's right. Let me ask you another question. You know, when you were here, you were rightly critical, not here actually, I guess it was on Cash's corner. You were rightly critical of the way that the previous FBI director used the FBI jet. And you said you wanted to ground Chris Wray's private jet travel that he pays for with taxpayer dollars to hop around the country. Let me ask you this. You know, on the weekend of, according to flight tracker data, on the weekend of March 7th, an FBI plane flew round trip from D.C. to Las Vegas, and you attended a UFC fight with Mel Gibson, and I'll show you that. Is that you, and is that true?
Yeah, you want to know the difference? I live in Las Vegas. I'm allowed to go home. I didn't leave a congressional hearing early on an FBI jet to dodge questions.
All right. Then on April 5th, you attended a hockey game in New York City. You don't live there, right?
No, I don't.
By the way, everyday FBI agents who are assigned in Washington don't get to fly home on a private jet.
Well, this is a great point. Do you know why I have to use a private jet? Because Congress made it mandatory.
Okay. In April 5th, well, we didn't make it mandatory that you go to UFC games with Mel Gibson.
Are you telling me I can't go home?
You know, you got to use some judgment here.
So when I'm at home,
you
I
would-
can't do what I'm doing when I go home. Everybody else is allowed to go home,
Let
just
me
not
keep
me.
going. No, I'm glad you go home. I
Okay.
love to go home, but I don't go home on a private jet. On April 5th,
They're not mandated to do so.
You attended a hockey game in New York City with Wayne Gretzky, and Flight Tracker says the FBI jet took you to and from New York City, where you don't live, right?
That's correct.
And on April 12th, on the following weekend, you attended a UFC fight in Miami, also on the FBI jet, right?
That's correct.
So what's the cost to the taxpayer for those 3 flights?
But I pay the commercial equivalent per the regs and the law. And so just so you know, when you are comparing me
I
to
just
prior
asked
directors.
I asked what the cost was, and you don't know, I take it.
Yeah, and what I've done with the use of the private jet is use Andrews Air Force Base versus
Okay.
Reagan National as what the other directors have done
Bottom line
to
here,
save the taxpayer
Bottom
dollars.
line here, you flew home to Las Vegas. There's nobody else in the FBI who gets paid. They have to pay their own way if they want to go home, right? I mean, right?
Well, that's not accurate. Depending on where you're stationed, the FBI covers the bill to get home.
So are you telling me that FBI agents who are assigned in Washington, but who may live in Charlotte, they get paid by the FBI to go
Sometimes
home?
they do, yes.
Right. Another thing I want to say is this. You know, our local law enforcement has been stiffed. About $500 million in COP grants have been taken out of the budget. Those really help us in Burlington. They help us in Rutland. They really are important. And why in the world would we be cutting those cop grants when we need that local law enforcement, in part to partner with you.
Well, I
Do
think
you
you're
support that?
I think you're speaking to the Department of Justice grants, which I don't adjudicate, but also Vermont, just like every other state, has received a plus-up of FBI personnel.
Well, I'll tell you, that's not what we're seeing. The other thing, my understanding is that there's a requisition or an effort to get another plane for the FBI that would cost about $72 million. Is that right?
That's inaccurate. The FBI, because the jet, as you call it, is not my jet. We use it for operational needs. We use it for FTOX. We use it for HRT.
But that's the one you fly in, right?
We have multiple fixed-wing assets, and one of them is on a wildly expensive lease that I deemed a waste of money, and I'm looking for a replacement in which the government can procure assets permanently.
Well, I would welcome you submitting to this committee the cost information about the jets that are under consideration. And according to our research, the specifications that are included in this request would result in an expenditure of between $72 million and $80 million.
That's inaccurate, but I'll happily get you the right
I
numbers.
welcome getting the specific information.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Instead of jumping straight into attacks, he grounded his comments in something every American can relate to: the toxic cycle of political violence. Welch reminded everyone that no matter where we fall on the political spectrum, our opponents are not our enemies. It was a call for unity, a reminder that democracy depends on mutual respect. But here's where things took a sharp turn. Patel's responses didn't match that spirit. They sounded more like the same evasions and half-answers that leave people wondering whether the system is built to protect insiders instead of serving citizens. The tension escalated when Welch brought up something Patel couldn't easily spin: his use of the FBI's private jet. Now, a government plane isn't supposed to be a personal toy. It exists for official missions, for critical operations, for emergencies where lives are on the line. But Welch highlighted how Patel used that same taxpayer-funded plane for a series of trips that looked a whole lot more like perks than duty. We're not talking about classified missions or high-stakes security deployments. We're talking about attending a UFC fight in Las Vegas with actor Mel Gibson. We're talking about flying to New York for a hockey game with Wayne Gretzky. We're talking about another UFC event in Miami, again on the taxpayer's dime. When pressed, Patel insisted he pays the commercial equivalent for his seat and that Congress made the jet mandatory. But Welch pushed back with the question most Americans are asking: if everyday FBI agents have to buy their own tickets to visit home, why does the man at the top get a special pass? The optics are damning. Regular agents don't board private jets for personal weekends. They drive, they fly coach, they live like the rest of us. Patel's excuses, no matter how technically legal, miss the larger point. Public service isn't supposed to come with celebrity treatment. It's supposed to come with accountability. And this wasn't just about Patel's travel habits. Welch zoomed out to the bigger picture: money. While Patel enjoys taxpayer-funded flights, local law enforcement across the country is being told to do more with less. Welch pointed out that $500 million in COPS grants, money that supports police departments in towns and cities like Burlington and Rutland, was cut from the budget. That's real funding that helps communities hire officers, buy equipment, and respond to rising crime. At the very same time, the FBI was reportedly seeking a new jet with a price tag between $72 and $80 million. Think about that contrast: millions for luxury air travel while neighborhoods lose the resources they depend on to stay safe. Patel pushed back on the numbers, saying the request was inaccurate, but Welch pressed for transparency. It's the kind of exchange that crystallizes why trust in government keeps slipping. When communities feel shortchanged while officials appear to live large, the system starts to look rigged. And whether or not Patel believes he's within the rules, the perception is what matters. Every flight to a UFC match or hockey game deepens the sense that those at the top aren't just public servants. They're part of a different class altogether. Welch then shifted to something even more explosive: credibility. He reminded Patel of a high-profile mistake during the aftermath of the attack on Charlie Kirk. Patel had announced to the public that "we got our man," but it turned out the suspect wasn't actually in custody. It was premature, misleading, and exactly the kind of statement that can damage fragile public trust. Patel brushed it off, claiming he could have worded it better and that he was trying to keep the public informed. But Welch wasn't having it. He pointed out what every ordinary citizen would think when hearing, "We got our man," that the danger is over, that people can relax. And when that turns out not to be true, it feels like the system is playing games with the truth. Now, combine that credibility gap with the jet controversy, and you get a dangerous cocktail. Leaders in law enforcement are supposed to be the guardians of truth and fairness. Instead, what Americans see are lavish perks and sloppy communication. That's how suspicion grows. That's how conspiracy theories thrive. And that's how trust in institutions collapses. But Welch didn't stop there. He brought up a case that goes straight to the heart of fairness inside the FBI itself: the firing of Brian Driscoll. If you don't know the name, here's the backstory. Driscoll wasn't some mid-level pencil pusher. He was a highly decorated agent with more than 18 years of service. He led SWAT teams, commanded the FBI's elite hostage rescue unit, and even earned a Medal of Valor for risking his life in counterterrorism missions. His record looked like the definition of service and sacrifice, yet Driscoll was fired. Why? According to reports, because he resisted political pressure related to the January 6th investigation. When asked to turn over the names of agents involved, he warned that those agents could become targets. He stood up for his team, for the people who followed orders and did their jobs. And for that, his career ended. Welch contrasted Driscoll's fate with Patel's perks. Think about the message that sends. Heroes who risk their lives get punished, while the man at the top takes private jets to rub elbows with celebrities. It's a double standard that corrodes morale inside the FBI and faith outside it. Patel's defense? He claimed the matter is under litigation and insisted there was other information behind the firing. But Welch wasn't convinced. And neither were many of the viewers who've watched the exchange online. The image of an honorable agent losing everything while the director shrugs off luxury travel is hard to ignore. It strikes a nerve because it feels familiar. Ordinary Americans know what it's like to work hard, follow the rules, and still get tossed aside. While those with power bend the rules and get rewarded, as Welch kept pressing, a larger theme came into focus: accountability. Leaders aren't just managers of an agency. They are examples. Their choices set the tone for everyone under them and shape the way the public views the institution. When a director dismisses legitimate questions, misleads the public, and enjoys perks his subordinates could never dream of, it doesn't just reflect badly on him. It reflects badly on the entire FBI. And in a country already skeptical of government power, that's a dangerous place to be. Welch's questioning highlighted something simple but powerful. Leadership is about trust. It's about showing the people you work for, the American public, that you live by the same rules they do. And it's about proving to the agents who put their lives on the line that their sacrifices mean more than cocktail parties with celebrities. Here's the bigger takeaway. This wasn't just a hearing about a jet. It wasn't just about Brian Driscoll or Charlie Kirk's attacker. It was about whether public officials see themselves as stewards of the people's money or as entitled insiders above scrutiny. Welch forced Patel to confront that question, and Patel's evasions only made the contrast sharper. For viewers, the message couldn't be clearer. If those at the top are willing to play by one set of rules while holding everyone else to another, then the credibility of the entire system is at risk. That's why moments like this matter. They remind us that accountability isn't optional. It's the very foundation of democracy. And now, it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think officials like Patel should be allowed to use government jets for trips to UFC fights and hockey games? Or should stricter rules be put in place to stop taxpayer dollars from funding VIP perks? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about one man's choices. It's about the standards we demand from the people who claim to serve us. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Welch was right to call him out? Should more senators be willing to press powerful officials with uncomfortable questions? And if you believe accountability and fairness should matter, don't just stop here. Hit the like button, share this video so others can see what's really happening, and make sure to subscribe for more deep dive breakdowns that cut through the spin and expose the stories Washington doesn't want you to hear. Because the fight for accountability isn't over, and it's one we all have a stake in.